two teams will meet out in the middle of the field to say job well done, job better done on this night by your Detroit Lions. They are still NFC North champions as they defend the division title that they won last year.
Welcome to the Twentyman Huddle podcast here at the Breakers in West Palm Beach. It's the annual league meetings, and everybody knows the guy sitting next to me, Brad Holmes, the general manager of Detroit Lions. Brad, I want to start with this. Have you ever seen the movie Moneyball?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody out there, that negotiating window that starts, I always view it, and I think some people may be out there too, that scene when Brad Pitt is trying to trade for Ricardo Rincon, and he's got two GMs on the line, and he's got a secretary calling, and he's wondering who's this, and he's eating the popcorn trying to wait. You know, I always picture like that's what that little, when it starts at noon on Monday, is it anything close to that, or is it, what is that little time period
you
like?
You know what,
is it so organized ahead of time? It's not chaotic because
it can be. You know, I will say this: it can be that chaotic. I remember last year, and usually it's not like early in the day. It's usually like later on in the evening. But you know, kind of early in the day, you kind of already done your planning and all your scenarios. You kind of went through everything. At least that's how we do it. So you feel pretty good from a preparation standpoint.
Yeah.
But then, look, when that clock strikes, I mean, it's fair game. And so even what you feel good about and what you think that you might be able to accomplish, that thing can flip in a hurry. And, you know, you might have a plan B that just flew off and you're still negotiating with plan A, and then plan C flies off, and then now it's like, okay, are you sunk costs into plan A? And, you know, and
yeah.
so there were some moments I know last year when we were a little bit more active in the external market. You know, it kind of gets, you know, late afternoon, early evening, and all the way through the night where you have to be very, very disciplined. You have to be very disciplined, and you have to be willing to draw a line and walk away if you have to. But, yeah, it can get pretty hectic. I don't know if it's, you know, I don't have popcorn. I'm not a really big eater guy when those moments are happening. But, yeah, it can get chaotic at times.
You know, my take from free agency and just from the outside looking in, and you guys obviously added some important external pieces in DJ Reed and Roy Lopez and Stuard. But to me, it was a roster that you thought could win a championship last year. Had not half a dozen guys maybe ended up on injured reserve. It was a lot of, you know, signing back a lot of your key pieces. That was important. You know those guys, right, Brad? They fit the culture already. But you did go out and get some pieces. Is that maybe an accurate statement that you really loved the pieces you had to the roster? You thought it was championship. You needed to supplement a little bit, which you did.
Yep.
But you've really felt good about that roster last year.
Oh, yeah. No, we really did. And, look, I just want to be clear about because the term we know the guys, you know, that's not the only – like when you say you know a guy – yeah, you know their name and their birth date and, you know, where they're from, where they went to high school. But when you say you know, like, you know what kind of guy they are in the locker room. You know what kind of teammate they are. You know what their reliability factor is. You know how they are when adversity comes in. You know how they're going to respond to adversity and what their work ethic is. And, like, you know, that's all those components come into I know this guy. You know, you might not always have those details on those external guys, but you hope that you can find out enough. Maybe it's, you know, through when they came out in college, or there might be a coach that, you know, might be on staff that might have been with that player. So you try to get as much you can, but I always say about a player's football character often shows on film as well. And, you know, that'd be a case like a DJ Reed. You know, his intangibles speak on tape. Stuart, like, from Indy, like, his intangibles speak on tape. And so that's what makes you feel really, really good about it. So, again, like I was saying earlier, we didn't come in with the plan of like, well, let's just bring all of our guys back. But when you start stacking our own guys versus the rest of the league, it just kind of made sense.
And that's important because you do that in every position too.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have a board with your guys and you rank them, and sometimes maybe there's a guy that's out there that's a little better, but sometimes it's your guy.
Absolutely.
And if it's the same price point, that what you talked about, those intangibles, right, mean the difference, right?
Exactly. If it's very close, there might be times where you have a guy externally, stacked right above your own guy. And it's like, it's close, but we don't really quite know this guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's like the other guy, the money's close, we'll engage and kind of see, what the financials are. But again, that comfort of it's so close, but we know what this guy is about.
Yeah.
And those are the things that matter, especially when you run into the adversity, late in the season. Those components matter than just maybe that small fraction of, well, this guy's a tick faster from the other guy that we don't know. This guy might be a tick faster. Well, is that tick faster really worth the unknown? Always look at free agency can be a little bit of a haunted house in that way.
Yeah.
And you look at the draft, the draft is more of a safe house, because you have all this time to do all this work on the intangibles and all that stuff. And look, the haunted house, you got to go through it. You got to pay your admission, but you got to be disciplined in that haunted house.
You made another great analogy, I thought, earlier when speaking to some reporters about free agency and some bills that are coming due.
Yeah.
And you likened it to kind of the 529 plan of college. Hits close to my heart with a junior in high school. So I know where this is going. Me and my wife have been doing that for a minute. But I thought it was a great point because you do have some really great players, and it's a compliment to you and the front office and the coaching staff. How you build a great football team is you draft, you develop, and you re-sign.
Yep.
Well, guess what? The re-signing part's a little bit expensive, isn't it? And so you'd love to go get the best free agent pass rusher and the best whatever. But, bills are come due, and that's just a part of it, and that's a good problem to have, isn't it?
It is. And look, our early years when we first got here, we were in a position to be a little bit more dependent on free agency. We were still building a team, so we had to be a little bit more dependent on free agency, but we had just drafted these guys, so we weren't worried about the bill coming. So we had the extra surplus of financial, of financial resources to spend a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, now bills are coming in, and that's when it comes to the discipline of that's the 529 and that's the mortgage, and it's like, okay, like we really can't take the vacation that we really want right now, or we might have to just scale down the vacation a little bit. But still, I was still thrilled of what we were able to do this free agency, because we still did more than I thought we were going to be able to do.
Little changeover, obviously, on Dan's staff, but your front office staff, too. Another problem, right? When you win, you're going to lose coaches, you're going to lose front office guys. Maybe just talk about the process and the implementation of some of the new guys, how they helped benefit, of what you thought of kind of your staff, and then maybe quickly of the coaching staff as well.
Yeah, I'll start with the coaches. Look, I thought Dan just did a phenomenal job of replenishing, like he always does. Obviously, we had more than what we've ever had to replenish this past year. That comes along with the success, but I thought Dan did an amazing job of displaying patience and just making sure he didn't just rush, and all these coaches were signing different places and all that stuff, and he didn't panic and just get a guy. Fit is everything for us, and he wanted to make sure that we got guys that fit who we are and what we're about. And just along those lines of fit, they happen to be really good coaches. It all starts with, what is your ability to teach and develop and, lead and inspire and motivate. And we felt really good about all those additions. And then, from a front office standpoint, we've obviously, we've had some losses and some departures there. going back to Dave Sears, I think was one of the first big ones, and that was a big one. And then then you get a Lance Newmark that leaves, and then you have Mike Martin, you have a John Dykema, but again, like I said earlier, that's me and Dan's job to make sure that we have succession plan in place. We hired Dwayne Joseph last year from the Raiders, director of scouting, and he's been a huge addition for us. So he definitely helped fill a lot of the void that we lost.
Well, speaking of scouting, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about it. And I have to say, Brad, I was really proud of myself at the Combine, because you probably know this too. Every year I try to ask a question about the draft, whether a position group or something. Every year you turn me down. I mean,
really?
The answer's always kind of, I like to keep things close to the vest. We're still analyzing.
But this year I let you have something.
This year you let me have the defensive line this year, which I was so excited about. But my question is, I'm curious, when a position group is as stacked as that one is, and all indications are it's one of the better ones in maybe a decade, how does that affect strategy at all, and does it at all? Because let's say you're at the end of the first round, and there's a bunch of D-line guys there that you love, but maybe there's another position group you really love too, and you're like, well, maybe I get that defensive line guy a little. How much does that affect your decision making, or is it always just, this is my guy, I love this guy, he's number one on my board, I'm taking him?
Yeah, look,
we not always to give away any strategy.
No, yeah, but no, it's a fair question, because that's me and Dan we're truly about, man, let's get the guy that we love. Like I don't care about the position and all this and that. I think the only time that really kind of makes his way into his quarterback, obviously, is if you have a franchise quarterback like what we do, then obviously if you're in a position to draft one you feel good, then okay, maybe that starts to come into play. But I'll tell you when it did come to fruition was our first draft. And, we were in the third round, and we thought that we were going to get a receiver around that time. And there were some receivers that we liked, but the defensive line, it was getting thin. And we really liked Aleem McNeil. And if we didn't get him where we got him, although that we wanted to still add a receiver, we were like, okay, well, let's get Aleem here, and then hopefully, St. Brown will
I think it worked out for you, all right.
And,
yeah.
It's a risk.
Yeah.
It's a risk.
Yeah.
But it was a larger volume. Just at receiver in general alone, it usually is a larger pool. It's one of the more voluminous positions in each draft is receiver and corner. But this year, the defensive line depth is pretty good, So again, we'll just see how it goes. But
you gotta feel good about your defensive line too.
Yeah, we feel good about it, but we try not to let that affect well, let's just get a defensive lineman later. Well, that's the fascination of the draft.
Yeah,
you can say later. You wait till later, there's none left because everybody's picked, know. So, you got to kind of go by feel, but it's all about the preparation.
Speaking of defensive line, and a couple more for you here, Hutch, how's he doing? How you liking the rehab? And that's a nice piece to get back.
Yeah, look, man, he. I saw something just last week of him doing some mobility things that was very encouraging, and there's a lot of sports science that goes into those rehab processes, and so his movement, his data that he's putting out right now is very, very encouraging at this point. And the other thing about a guy like Hutch is like how he's wired. And it makes you sleep good at night. That you have a guy that's gonna just go maximum full throttle and really attack it. It makes you sleep good at night because he's doing. Look, our medical and training staff, like, they can do all they can, but the player has to want to really push it and stack hard days. And
you know how that
guy's
wired.
That's how you make the games. And so when you have a player like Hutch and with our great medical staff, it makes it a lot more encouraging.
All right, final one from me. We are in this beautiful environment here. It's nice and warm, but any proposals, any of the league business that happens here? Does anything jump out to you? I know you guys issued a couple proposals here, some with the illegal contact and defensive holding not to be a first down, some of the changes to playoff format. I'm just curious, is there any one that you feel strongly about or not really? You're just going to see how it kind of lands out?
Yeah, we'll just kind of see on Tuesday morning. That's always like the fate, we have a lot of dialogue back and forth. We've already touched a lot of those topics. We touched a lot of them yesterday in our session with all the proposals. And, it's always just kind of the wait and see. You want to always be able to provide more clarity on all of them, just to kind of state your case of why you're doing it, whether it's, the ICT or whether it's the playoff season or the 90-man roster limit. You just want to provide more clarity just to make sure that the league understands why we're proposing them. But we just got to see what happens Tuesday morning.
We will see. Brad Holmes, General Manager of Detroit Lions, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for
Always
having
one
me.
of my favorite ones down here.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Tim.
Welcome back to the Twentyman Huddle podcast, and I always like this segment right here because we talk so much about the on-field product, and we'll get into that a little bit too, but the business side of the NFL is so important too, and obviously here with Team President Rod Wood, and last year it was the uniforms and a lot going on there. What's kind of been the main thing, the big thing on your plate this offseason as you've kind of prepared for the players coming back and everything else? I know there's a lot going on at Allen Park. Has that been one? And the naming rights at Ford Field has been big too.
Well, a couple of things we got done. The naming rights extension with Ford at the field, which is great. We've got the Final Four coming up in 2027. The deal was going to expire just before that, so getting it done so we can maximize the benefit for Ford and market, Ford Field as a destination of the Final Four, especially while March Madness is going on. It kind of is a great time to do that. So that's exciting. And then, with the facility, while the players are away, we always look at an off-season project or two, and we're redoing the locker room. It'll be, space age compared to what it, was. I'm sure they'll be excited to see it. Some have been in and checked it out, and we had them sit in the chairs to make sure everybody fits and everything's good. And then we're also redoing the weight room and significant expansion of that and bringing in all new weight equipment. So when they get back, everything should be done, ready to go. Off-season program starts in a couple weeks, and they'll be good to go.
I know the NFLPA survey is a big thing, but you guys do your own survey. I know you've mentioned that before too, and just how important is getting that player aspect of those kind of things. And I don't think a lot of teams maybe take it as serious as you guys do, but to do your own kind of survey and have that player input, that seems like an important part of kind of that process.
We do it right at the end of the year before the guys take off, give them a chance to voice their opinion on what they like, what they don't like, what we can be doing better. And we take it very seriously, and really the weight room and the locker room were the result of that survey. And in addition to that, we talk to the leadership council and say, here's 4 or 5 things we could do. What are the 2 or 3 that you think have the biggest impact? Those were the 2, locker room being number 1. That's more fun than the weight room.
Yep.
Weight room's important too, so that was number 2. And we have, in the queue maybe for next year, the next couple that are also important. And it's all about making the players, feel like they're appreciated, their voice is heard, and when they come to work, it's a good place to be, and helps them get better and helps them want to stay there longer. All those things are important.
One other off-season piece of news is you guys have obviously been in the Germany, Switzerland, Austria market. You guys are entering Brazil now. Just how excited are you, and kind of what went behind that collaboration with Brazil?
So we talked about Brazil a year ago when we've been on Germany and Canada. We decided to let's get our toes wet in those 2 markets first, put Brazil on the back burner. Brazil was an attractive market. There's a lot of NFL fans down there. One of our leading business and football analytics guys, Brazilian, so he will
helps.
He'll help us interpret what the hell's going on down there. And there's a lot of connection to Detroit and the auto industry because of that. It's in our, hemisphere, so getting back and forth, there's been games played in Brazil that could be, in the future for us down the road. So all those made sense. And, we kind of took a back seat to going into the international market, let some other teams go in there, figure out what works, what doesn't work. We've been able to learn from other teams and, hopefully take advantage of that. We're off to a pretty good start in Germany with a couple of potential sponsors. St. Brown's a huge popular fan over there.
Yeah.
Player over there, and you see guys wearing his jersey. He speaks fluent German, so we'll benefit from being in Germany with St. Brown and we'll see how it all goes.
Speaking of that, when do you expect? It's been a while since we've been overseas with London. Do you expect that coming soon? You've got an extra home game in 2026. Is that maybe the expectation? What conversations have you had with the league on that?
There's no promises or threats of it, but I think it's going to be our turn probably in 26. When you have your 9th home game once every 8 years, you have to give up one of those to play internationally, and we're overdue. And if we were to go, I have voiced an interest in playing in Germany because of the marketing efforts there and the St. Brown connection. So we'll see what happens with that, but that's a possibility for sure.
You're probably the perfect person to ask this, but just how fun is it to be the president of a team that's wanted? And you look at the television contracts, you look at some of the secondary ticket market stuff. I mean, Rod, this team is really, really, really popular. And how fun is that aspect? Because you've seen both sides of it, and it's an underdog story. And probably being on this side of it is a heck of a lot more fun, isn't it?
It's certainly a lot more fun. It's great to see the fans, enjoying themselves and so happy, and seeing Lions jerseys and Lions stuff all over, and people yelling "Go Lions!" and you don't have the, oh my God, I feel so sorry for you, you're a Lions fan. I think we've done a lot to help, the brand in Detroit, and, having the draft there, and, being a team that people root for. I love the shirt. There was actually a guy sitting behind me on the plane on the way down here that says, I was a Detroit Lions fan before it was cool. And, so that seeing things like that, put a smile on your face. Everybody's a lot nicer to me. I know that.
But financially, I mean, with some of the television stuff, I mean, I think you were talking earlier. You guys were the #1 team on CBS, ABC, Amazon, ESPN. It's second on Fox. I mean, there's a real move of popularity with this football team. Why do you think that is?
I just think, we have, a young, exciting team. I think people root for an underdog, and we, not been good for a long time. So, being in this position is new and exciting. Certainly Dan Campbell's a big part of it. I think he's a coach everybody loves. And I know a lot of fans have said, I'd love to have my Dan Campbell, or why can't we get a Dan Campbell as a coach? So I think he's a big part of it. The fact that we score a lot of points and have some, playmakers on offense is exciting. So all that puts together, and then I think our fan base has always been rabid.
Yeah.
And now they're just getting the benefits of, being fans for a long time and taking it to a whole nother level and bringing in new fans because of all those things I just mentioned.
We talked to Brad down here, and really it's a player-driven league, right? And he made the analogy of, we can't really go on vacation right now because of all the young players that we've got. It's a compliment to the drafting that he's done, but those bills come due, right? And so the focus this offseason on just keeping your own. Why is that such a big focus for you and Mike and Brad, and when you sit down and decide the cap, and that's the way you guys want to go?
Well, I mean, everybody says they want to draft well, they want to develop their own players, and they want to re-sign them. Everybody says that's their plan.
Yeah.
And then most people don't draft well, can't develop them, and then have to sign free agents. And they get headlines this time of the year because they're signing free agents.
Right.
We're getting headlines for signing our own guys, and that's not as sexy sometimes. But the plan that we're pursuing, I think, is the plan that everybody talks about.
Yeah.
Which is you draft well, you develop those guys, they become stars, they become your foundation, you reward them with the second contract, and you keep drafting well. And, right now we've been benefiting from a lot of stars that are on rookie contracts. Mm-hmm. Those bills are starting to come due, and, they'll continue to come due with Hutch and, Gibbs.
You got Laporta, you got Branch, you got name them, but that's a good
Kirby,
problem to have.
And it's
a great problem to have.
And those are stars. They just happen to be on our team. So you're not going to win the free agency headlines, but it's a little bit like trying to win the draft headline. If you draft the guy that Mel Kiper likes, you might win the night. But if you draft Jahmyr Gibbs at number 12, you get criticized.
Yeah.
Until he scores 20 touchdowns.
And you're thinking about re-signing him
and
4 years later. Yeah.
Then nobody's criticized.
Well, it obviously was an exciting last. Didn't end the way you guys wanted, but you're bringing back your own players. There's a lot of excitement around this team. Dan's done a good job with the coaching staff. Obviously, Brad's getting ready for the draft, and the business side seems like it's booming. Everything seems to be going really well right now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a fun time to be, working for the Lions and being a Lion fan. You're looking forward to the draft. We, again, hopefully we have another good draft like we've had. We got a great coaching staff. We lost a lot of guys. I was talking to somebody today. 8 or 9 coaches I think we turned over, which I've never seen anything like that. But we've been backfilling them with great new additions, some of which you guys are just getting to know, and the fans are just getting to know. But we'll be ready when we get ready to tee it up in the fall.
Means you're a good football team. Rod Wood. Welcome to the Twentyman Huddle podcast here at the annual league meetings at the Breakers in Florida. The man next to me needs a little introduction. Dan Campbell, head coach. How you doing, Dan?
Good.
So, obviously, a tough loss to the end of the season. I'm just curious, how long does something like that stick with you? Or is it for you just, let's get back to work, turn this thing around? I guess, what's the motivation after that? What have the last, couple months been like?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I think my press conference right after I was, whatever that was, 2 days after the game, I guess. I don't know when that was, a day, 2 days. I was ready to go. And it doesn't mean, you ask when it doesn't go away. That'll always be there, no different than what happened the year prior. You use that as motivation, but it's important that it doesn't bury you, or that you lose confidence, or you don't have the fight anymore, or it's always there as a motivation, And I've still got it up on my board. I've written it, and it'll be there all year. And it says you failed, own it, and what am I going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? That's the mindset.
Well, what you guys have began to do about is build this roster for 2025. And just from the outside looking in, my biggest takeaway from free agency is that this was a coaching staff and a front office that felt like you guys had a team that could win the championship last year. Obviously, the injuries added up and everything, but you've added some key pieces. But the big part of it was re-signing a lot of your own guys and running a lot of this back. Is that accurate to say that you really felt good about that roster? Injuries are injuries. They're going to happen, right? You play through it. But if you don't have that, this was a championship roster in your mind?
Yeah, we believe that. We did. I think what we had built and what we Brad and myself have built over the last 4 years to get to this point is we had a team that was we had just as good a chance as anybody. We had enough talent. We had the coaching. We had everything. And so we did. We felt good about that. And, we're going to look to improve as well in the draft and add to this. But that's our goal is every year we've got a team that can compete and has a chance to win every year. That's what we're trying to do.
Some of the additions, Roy Lopez seems like a Dan Campbell guy, 100%. He talked in his press conference, meeting coach. I think Dan can still play. He joked. He's a big guy, But how does he fit? DJ Reed, Stuard, maybe just go through a couple of those first wave guys. How they really fit you.
Look, the way they play speaks for itself, I mean, when we watch guys, look, I tell the team every year, I did it again this year, is Brad and I, we will not bring anybody into this team that we don't believe fits us or fits those guys. And, man, if you don't play a certain type of way, or you're not going to be a certain type of teammate that plays a certain type of way, and you're not about the hard stuff, or you don't have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, you don't belong with us. And like Lopez, watch him play, man. This guy he's a dirtbag on the D-line. He plays hard, he's aggressive, he's tough, he's smart, he's relentless. And then same thing with Reed. Watch Reed, man. This guy's competitive. He's feisty. He gets in your face, man. He challenges at the catch point. He challenges on the perimeter. He tackles. I mean, that's us, man. And you got to be a football player. You got to be able to do a little bit of everything, and certainly do the hard work. The stuff that's not always the most glorious. You do that stuff, and then, you belong here.
A little bit of turnover on your coaching staff. You talk about Parcells all the time, Peyton, that coaching tree, right? You reference those guys. You learn so much from those guys. How happy are you for Ben and Aaron to kind of start, their journeys now and opens up your coaching tree? Not that you probably care about that as much, but that's the cycle, right? I mean, every year when coaches get head jobs, that's always been the model, right? It's like, hey, man, we're going to win here, and then, I know you're here, you're going to get promoted, or you're going to get a chance to go somewhere else, and then it doesn't always work that way. And we've been fortunate here. We've done things right for a while. We've been able to win, and because of that, guys are moving up. They move up, they move on, and it's really how it's supposed to be. It's hard, but I am happy for them. I'm happy for both of those guys, and I'll be happy for Ben other than 2 times a year. Obviously, some of the news down here, some of the proposals. Is there anything you feel passionate about? I know you guys submitted a couple of proposals for the owners to take a look at. Is there anyone in particular that jumps out to you that you'd really like to see? Or,
I mean, I don't know how, man, are we going to die on this hill for this? I don't know if there's necessarily that. Certainly the proposal for the illegal contact defensive holding, that I feel like that would be nice because I do think there's, it's not. I don't feel like that's equal right now. That's not equality in the penalty itself, But I don't know if that's going to make it or not. But I just know from the number of times that we had, it wasn't so much the penalty itself, it's the fact that 2nd 16, 2nd 12, 2nd 10, 2nd 10, 3rd and 8, and you're like, man, this illegal contact happened 6 yards down the field, and it was 2nd 16. And that's automatic first down seems a little.
I'm sure a lot of head coaches, probably not as many offensive coordinators.
No,
head coaches
I got the defensive guys.
You've got it, luck. All right, Coach. Let's finish with this. It's obviously such a huge jump in production first year to second year. How excited are you for some of the second year guys? Terrian obviously got a lot of playing time, and it's not as much because of the injuries, but there's a list of guys, Wingo and Vaki and Manu, just those second year guys. How much of a big jump do you expect from those guys? How much can they help you? Obviously we know Terrian, but maybe the other guys that didn't see as much time. Are you excited about that group and the progression, the jump they could make?
Yeah, we are, and I think you make your biggest jump between year 1 and year 2. Most of the time, it doesn't mean you don't improve every year, but your biggest jump normally is between those 2 years because you learn so much. So, yeah, I am looking forward to those guys. It was, really Terrion played the most out of those guys. And then Vaki a ton on special teams, limited on offense, but those guys. We also know there was going to be a learning curve. There's going to be a little bit of a process with growth with these guys, with Manu, Mahogany, right, with Rakestraw, and so yeah, we expect these guys to really step up and help us in a big way this year, take a big jump.
How much is this process, the draft process, fun? I know it's the league meetings down here, but you guys, I'm sure, have an eye, a couple weeks coming. Do you like this part of it?
Yeah,
I
do.
This process?
I do, yeah, because you're trying to find these guys that you fall in love with, and that you really feel like fit what you're about. And you want to envision them on the football field with the guys around them, and you want to envision them in the locker room with those guys. And, man, we don't want to take anybody we're lukewarm on, he's a productive player, but he's okay. Like, man, because then if it doesn't work out, you got nobody to be upset with but yourself. Yeah. So so yeah, from that aspect, it's fun to try to find these guys that you just feel like, man, that guy belongs here with us.
Well, it's a fun time. Free agency obviously finishing up. We'll figure out some league business here. The draft is upcoming, busy time. Thanks for joining me, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.